Neopets, one of the web's earliest pet sites in the virtual world that launched 1,000 virtual worlds. There's a good chance that any young adult you ask will have many fond memories of Neopets and will be able to talk for hours on end about their beloved Jub Jub or the time they accrued millions of Neopoints through illicit trading and became a tycoon. You know, typical kid stuff. But it wasn't all rainbows and fairies on Neopets, and the site is infamous for the many scandals that it's gotten itself into over the years. Today let me take you on a journey, an exploration of the many strange scandals that our beloved Neopets has gotten itself into over the years. Before we get on with the video, I'd just like to give a massive thank you to today's sponsor, Honey. I'm sure that these days most of the shopping you do is probably online. That's where Honey comes in. Honey will become your dearest, most beloved friend when it comes to online shopping. It's a free online shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and coupons and automatically tests them out for you whenever you check out, helping you to save money and score some great deals. So here's how it works. Simply add Honey to your browser for free in 2 easy clicks. Head to one of Honey's over 30,000 supported sites and check out with your goodies. Honey will automatically work its magic, pop up, and all you gotta do is click apply coupons and boom, you've just saved money, baby. It's really that simple. I used it just the other day to buy makeup and I saved 15%. If you have a computer, Honey should be on it. So if you want to join me in saving money, head to joinhoney.com/izzies. That's joinhoney.com/izzies, IZZZYZZZ, to start saving money now. Thank you so much to Honey for sponsoring this video, and now let's get on with the video. To understand all of Neopets' controversies, we first have to start at the beginning. Neopets was created by Adam Powell and Donna Williams, who conceived the idea in 1997 and launched the site in November of 1999. In the beginning, the goal of the site was to, quote, keep university students entertained and possibly make some cash from banner advertising. The site was fairly simple. Users would look after their own virtual pets, play minigames, and chat to others on the forum. The original site was extremely rough around the edges, littered with pop culture references and half-baked creature designs, but the ideas were all there. The creature designs were strange yet lovable, the games were simple yet addictive, and a system where Neopets had to be cared for regularly kept players coming back for more. By Christmas of 1999, the site was logging over 600,000 views daily, and the developers were struggling to keep up with the server costs and surge of popularity. Powell and Williams had no idea that the site would blow up so much in just a little under a month, and so they began looking for investors who could help them manage their newly viral site. And this is where we reach controversy number 1. In late December of 1999, Adam and Donna met Doug During, who agreed to invest in Neopets alongside several other investors. They all brought shares in early January of 2000, presumably waiting until after the turn of the century just in case Y2K wiped out the entire Neopets website. You know, it's always good to be on the safe side. During himself founded Neopets Inc. just a month later, turning the once unknown website into a bona fide brand in just a few months. So Neopets was saved. They were able to upgrade their servers and now work full-time on the bustling website. The artwork was upgraded and the features were piling up. From battling pets to trading items to investing in the in-game stock market, the site became a place for kids to explore and express themselves. Many have even cited the website as a sort of safe haven for kids in the early 2000s, during a time where the internet could be openly unfriendly beyond your small web ring of friends. So Neopets was the hottest new trend, and despite its original demographic of college students and young adults, it's a big hit with kids and tweens. It seemed like everything was going great, and at the time it very much was, but it would come out years later that Doug During and his team were Scientologists. Now, for legal reasons, all of this is completely alleged, and this is all in the context of education and entertainment in the form of recounting a series of events that happened according to publicly available sources. Okay, with that out of the way, let's continue. For a period of about 5 years in the early 2000s, Doug During was the CEO and primary investor in Neopets and also happened to be a Scientologist. This has become something of an urban legend in modern times, with rumors of brainwashing and subliminal messages being spread around. Some claim that one of the pets, the Zweetok, was actually named after the Scientologist figure Xenu, and in a now deleted article, Kotaku claimed that employees were pressured into joining Scientology. However, none of this was actually true and would be debunked by the creators themselves. Scientology actually made much less of an impact on the site than many people have claimed. In a Reddit AMA from 2015, Donna Williams wrote about the role of Scientology on Neopets in the early years. Quote, The company was structured like a Scientology org. It didn't really change anything that I noticed apart from some odd tests that interviewees had to take consisting of questions like which straight lines seem friendlier and stuff like that. We also had a lot of obscure celebrities coming around the office for tours. At one time there was some talk about putting Scientology education on the site, but we killed that idea pretty sharpish. Adam and I made sure that it never made its way onto anything site related. Religion and politics were two big no-nos for us as far as site content went. Can't say the discussions we had to keep it that way were much fun though. Tom Cruise totally came around the office, didn't he? The reason that the company was, quote, structured like a Scientology org has been attributed to the claim that During was using the org board, a Scientologist business model, to run the company. While Adam and Donna felt that this didn't heavily impact the company, others felt differently about this business model. Patricia Illingworth, a senior fellow at the Kennedy School of Government's Carr Center for Human Rights at Harvard, was quoted in an Outline article calling the business model morally unethical for a variety of reasons. Regardless, aside from a lot of fear-mongering and childhood-ruined posts about Scientology's involvement, the organization itself had little bearing on the website. Due to Adam and Donna's refusal to add politics or religion to the game, it remained largely unchanged in that regard. It turns out that the most interesting thing that Doug During brought to the table wasn't Scientology, but something called immersive advertising. During the early days of the site, Adam and Donna had been making money from pop-up and banner ads, which were commonplace on the internet at the time. However, Doug During was a businessman first and foremost, and putting that business acumen to work, he created something that he called immersive advertising. Instead of advertising brands and products through explicit ads, why not incorporate the advertising into the game? This may not seem that egregious. These days, product placement is pretty common, with everything from movies to TV shows to music videos having those shots that linger just a little bit too long on a pair of Beats headphones or a Coke can. Back in the early 2000s though, for a game like Neopets, this was virtually unheard of. From a 2002 Time magazine article, quote, "At the Neopia food shop, Uh-Oh Oreo cookies, Nestle Sweethearts, and Laffy Taffy candy, along with unprocessed foods, have occasionally been available to buy with Neopoints to feed virtual pets. Kids can also win points by watching cereal ads or movie trailers in the Disney theater." The Neopets team were adding branded items and minigames onto the site, covertly advertising to their young user base under the guise of simple gameplay. With banner ads, it's easy to tell that what you're seeing is in fact an advertisement, but children had a much harder time identifying this immersive advertising. Neopets worked with a huge number of brands, including McDonald's, General Mills cereal, Zazzle, Disney, Coca-Cola, Kraft, Heinz, Mattel, Capri Sun, Nickelodeon, and more. To be fair, it was an extremely effective form of advertising that would only gain popularity over the years, but at the time it was very controversial. Articles and think pieces on the ethics of immersive advertising were constantly coming out, with many parents critical of Neopets and their associated brands. And it prompted many people to raise the question, how young is too young to start being targeted with advertising? 80% of Neopets players were under 18, with the average age being about 14, but it wasn't uncommon for 7 and 8-year-olds to have accounts. Nowadays, though Copper would have you believe otherwise, online content targets young children more than ever, but like I said earlier, this was pretty unheard of at the time. For most kids, this immersive advertising flew under their radar as they plied their Neopets with McDonald's and Coke, but it was so egregious at times that even young kids could feel that something was off. In a Vice article on the topic, one 30-year-old player wrote, quote, "As a 10-year-old, it felt weird and inappropriate to me that I was being so aggressively targeted with advertising. Despite the controversy that During's immersive advertising would bring about, it would go on to become an extremely profitable and popular form of advertising for online games. Titans like Club Penguin and Habbo Hotel would integrate brands into their game, and as the years went on, this style of invasive yet covert advertising would become the norm." So thank you Neopets for pioneering capitalism for children. It turns out that it wasn't just targeted advertising that was raising concerns on Neopets.com. Many parents had begun to worry about the normalization of gambling on the website. Neopets had a whole host of addictive gambling games, from Brucey B Slots to Bilge Dice to Wheel of Excitement, and even had casino games like blackjack and poker. There was also, of course, the Neopian stock market, where kids could put together their very own portfolio of fictional investments and watch haplessly as all their stocks plummeted. Also, fun fact, apparently shortly before Viagra Viacom purchased Neopets, Doug During admitted that he purposely messed with the Neopian stock market to bankrupt the in-game companies. Such a fucking troll. Of course, these games were played with Neopoints, a virtual currency. It's not like Neopets was getting all these kids into real debt over jub blackjack. But the fact that there were so many games based upon real-life gambling on this kids site did raise concerns. Some may see this as an overreaction, but the media that kids consume does have an impact on them and kind of shapes their worldview, so gamifying and normalizing gambling, it's a little off. These rising concerns came to a head in 2004 when Neopets partnered with McDonald's to include Neopets plushies with every Happy Meal. Damn, McDonald's toys used to actually be good. These are some sweet pieces of merch. Anyway, every Neopet plushie came with a tag which directed kids to the Neopets website, and when one mother, quote, discovered her 9-year-old playing online poker to feed his virtual pet, she went to the media, because of course she did. She contacted Australian current affairs show Today Tonight, who aired the story Parents Not McHappy Over Pokey Toy. For those outside of Australia and New Zealand, a pokey is another word for a fruit machine / poker machine. I couldn't for the life of me find any videos of this segment from Today Tonight, but a transcript of the broadcast reads, among the activities the site offers are virtual pokies, roulette games, and card games where one of the cute characters teaches children the rules of poker and blackjack. As Michelle's son Harley explains, you need to gamble to raise points to feed your virtual Neopets. He says if you don't gamble up enough points to feed your pet, it goes to the orphanage. Players who don't win enough points gambling to buy food actually have to send their Neopets to a virtual soup kitchen. A 9-year-old boy doesn't have the ability to question, Michelle said. He doesn't even know what a virtual soup kitchen is. Child psychologist Michael Cargregg says that this is a surefire way to turn our kids into gambling addicts. He says children just don't have the critical facilities needed to understand the dangers of adult-style gambling. As far as I'm concerned, this is sanitizing, normalizing, and glamorizing gambling, Mr. Cargregg said. I don't necessarily disagree in terms of the ethics of adding gambling to a kid's game, but this news article was blatantly wrong. Yes, Neopets did have gambling games, but they were optional, and Neopets never had a system where pets would be taken to an orphanage if they weren't fed. There were plenty of non-gambling games on the site that you could earn Neopoints on, and the worst thing that would happen to your pet if you starved it was that they would look a bit sad and you'd feel guilty for the crime of virtual pet neglect. Also, it's called the pound, not the orphanage. Get it together, Harley. The kid was only 9, so it's possible that he misunderstood the site or didn't know how to properly explain it, or maybe his mother took it out of context, I don't know. Regardless of the fact that all of this information could have been debunked if the producers of Today Tonight had spent 5 minutes on the website, they obviously weren't going to do that, so the story aired. It caused a huge amount of controversy and drew the attention of multiple anti-gambling groups and of course flocks of worried parents, eventually resulting in the banning of all gambling games for Australian players. Yes, every chance-based game from blackjack to craps, was disabled for players in Australia due to this little debacle. This was only a temporary ban as McDonald's had pressured the Neopets team into disabling these games for the duration of the Happy Meal promotion. After all, the games weren't just disabled for kids in Australia, but adults too, meaning that even legal adults who could actually gamble in real life couldn't play virtual coconut shy. The outrage eventually died down when users found out that they could change their country settings to work around this ban, and I believe that it was eventually lifted, but the ban would have a more permanent impact on the site than originally thought. Because of this debacle, Neopets ended up restricting gambling games to kids 13 or over, which many people found pretty ridiculous and arbitrary. Like, a 12-year-old isn't allowed to gamble, but a 13-year-old is. Thankfully for fans of bilge dice, these games were here to stay, even if the 10-year-old gambling addict demographic was cut off. In 2005, Viacom purchased Neopets for $160 million, and shortly after this, original creators Adam Powell and Donna Williams left Neopets Inc. due to creative differences. By this point, Neopets had over 35 million players and was one of the most popular or sticky websites on the internet. Yes, that's the real term. So things were going well for Neopets, and as is typical with small projects that get large and corporate, Viacom decided that they wanted to overhaul the website a bit. See, the original Neopets art was rudimentary, and over the years, many different artists had been brought on board to do various bits and pieces. This resulted in a patchwork of art styles, all of varying quality, making the site look very rough and kinda mashed together, which in my opinion is honestly what gave it a lot of charm. However, like I said, Neopets was going corporate, and so all of the pets were given brand new art. This wasn't just for aesthetic purposes though. The previous artwork was basically just a flat PNG, while the new artwork was layered and would allow for the pets to be dressed up and accessorized. So most pets on the site were given new artwork and were called converted converted pets because they were converted from the old art style into the new art style. However, some pets were allowed to remain in the old art style and were called unconverted pets. The thing that determined whether pets would be converted or left unconverted was their colour. For the uninformed, before you could dress pets up using clothes, the main way to customize them was by recoloring them using an item called the paintbrush. Paintbrushes came in basic colours, which would simply change the colour of the pet, but also came in more uncommon colours which were themed and would change the pet's entire pose and base. Most basic colours were converted, but a select few remained unconverted. For example, Plushy, Fairy, Grey, Darrigan, Royal, Sponge, and Maraquin were a few colours that remained unconverted. Unconverted pets, or UCs for short, were able to be converted if the user wanted to dress them up, but once converted they could not go back to being unconverted. This made UCs very, very rare and highly valued, both because the old artwork was way more charming and expressive, and also because as soon as you make something rare it becomes 10 times as appealing and suddenly everyone wants it. Especially on a kid's site where as a 10-year-old having a UC was the only crumb of clout you could get. When the art overhaul first happened, a lot of kids ended up converting their UCs because they wanted to try out the dress up feature, not knowing that they were slimming the numbers even further. So it all sounds simple enough, right? The website gets new art, some pets get to keep their old art, and because of this they become rare and sought after, and the economy gets a boost. Well, it wouldn't stay simple for long, because it turns out that UCs would cause problem after problem for Neopets and its community. The Neopets economy was extremely volatile. It was essentially run by the players, so there are countless stories of sudden market crashes, players manipulating and gaming the system, and the economy just straight up being broken. Naturally, UCs increased this volatility tenfold, creating an economy infested with hackers, scammers, and illegitimate sellers. So let's get into it, and keep in mind this can get a little bit confusing at times, but I've done my best to kind of put it into layman's terms and make it as understandable as possible. So, according to the Neopets terms of service, you're not supposed to trade pets for Neopoints, items, or real currency. You're only meant to trade pets with other pets, but rules were made to be broken, and since the dawn of the site, an underground black market of Neopets has existed. After the 2007 art change, however, this black market would become far more prominent because of UCs. For the average user, it was impossible to trade for a UC with a normal converted pet, unless that pet was well named. The Neopets naming system is kind of odd, as it requires every pet in the game to have a unique name. For example, there can't be 2 pets named Timmy in the game, only 1, and since there's over 285 million pets, names became pretty scarce. Most pets had names like XXX Sakura _ anime _ flower XXX123, or as 458978510. If you had a pet with a simple 1 or 2 word name that was capitalized and spelt correctly, that was a very highly valued pet. So essentially, unless you were one of the very slim few who got into Neopets early enough to snag a coherent name, you were out of luck and you wouldn't be able to trade for a UC. That is, unless you have a little bit of cash on the side and are willing to go against terms of service to do an illicit deal. UCs were going for hundreds of dollars on these black market sites, with rumors that some especially rare or well-named UCs were going for thousands. And while this was a reliable method to obtain UCs, a lot of players didn't want to go against terms of service, so they had to turn to other methods. So, fun fact, a lot of UCs on the website today are the product of hacking. In 2013 and 2016 respectively, there were 2 huge database breaches which leaked the usernames, emails, and passwords of thousands of accounts. Fun fact too, if you had a Neopets account, there's a good chance that your information is floating around out there somewhere, so let that lull you to sleep tonight. Anyway, Neopets users would take these leaks and categorically log into all of the accounts, rating them for good items, with UCs being the most prized loot. There was, however, one more method to obtain a UC. Basically the only legitimate method, but it was painfully slow, incredibly unreliable, and exhaustively boring. In Neopets, there's a place called the Pound where you have the option to abandon any pets you don't want anymore, and you can also adopt pets from the Pound. Neopets code is infamously broken. The Pound is very broken. Certain pets' names would scramble the code and they would become stuck, meaning that they weren't visible in the Pound, like they were in there but you couldn't see them. The only way to see them was by typing their names into the search bar, and with names like Homer Simpson 827985 and Ebony Darkness Dementia Ravenway 16, this wasn't really a viable method. So there were thousands upon thousands of hidden pets, and there was a good chance that there were some rare UCs in there. Some users made bots to manually search the Pound for stuck UCs, but they were usually eventually banned due to the site's bot detection. So this is where our incredibly unreliable, painfully slow, and exhaustively boring method comes into play. Using an Excel spreadsheet, users could generate hundreds of URLs which could be viewed in an HTML file. This was essentially what the bots did, but manually, and therefore much slower and more tedious. Since this file showed each pet using its image, players could quickly look through the page and easily identify any unconverted pets by their image. So many a user spent long nights painstakingly searching for pets using this method, and the returns were ridiculously low. Despite some users spending weeks on end trawling through hundreds of sheets, supposedly only about 10 UCs were found because, let's be real here, it was very much a needle in a haystack situation. But the discovery of the spreadsheet method was a big revelation, and the first time many users felt that a UC was within their grasp, so they dedicated hours upon hours to this tedious task. Little did they know they wouldn't have to search for much longer. On Friday the 22nd of November 2019, a post appeared on the Neo boards in the Pound chat. It was a list of over 700 unconverted Neopets stuck in the Pound. You don't understand, people had collectively been searching for hundreds of hours using this method and had turned up maybe a handful. 700 UCs were just posted. It was carnage. This occurred during the early hours of the morning around 6 AM PST, so not too many people were on the boards. And yet, at one of Neopets' emptiest hours, the Pound chat became a flurry of frantic activity with users scrambling to claim these UCs. Most users rushed to claim the UCs with the highest value, but upon finding that they had already been claimed, they scrambled to take whatever was left. The original poster, dubbed UC Santa for their generous spirit, was banned for inappropriate language later that same day after cussing out greedy players, but not before making one last post. I've actually seen conflicting reports about whether UC Santa posted this on the same day or whether they posted it a few weeks later in early December, but this screenshot seems to indicate that it was posted on the same day, so we'll go with that. 28th December 2019. 8 PM NST, and then they were gone, disappearing just as abruptly as they had come. Users were both bewildered and excited over this prophetic post. A few days later, on the 27th of November, UC Santa supposedly re-emerged, claiming that they would pick 5 random users to send a UC pet. Users made a list and added their name alongside the pets they wanted, and after only 30 minutes, this list had over 200 users on it. UC Santa then selected these lucky few, sent them their UCs, and was promptly banned. Obviously, by this point the community was in shambles, and news had spread far and wide about UC Santa and their prophetic post. The Neo boards were the busiest they had ever been, with thread after thread of bewilderment, shock, and speculation. Some users were ecstatic and bragged about how many UCs they had picked up, with some greedy little fellas claiming upwards of 10 UCs from the list. Others, who had come out of UCGate empty-handed, planned their tactics for the next drop, coming at 8 PM on the 28th of December. In the month between UC Santa's drops, the community became progressively more tense and aggressive. While some groups memed about it, other corners of the board broke out into fights and arguments. The boards had been pretty empty when the original list was posted, but by the evening of the 28th, players across the globe were tuning in, even those who hadn't played in years logged back on for this exciting event. People were live posting, waiting in Discord calls, the entire forum was busier than it had been in years, and everyone was waiting with bated breath. At 5:45 PM, a few hours before UC Santa was set to arrive, a strange post appeared on the Pound chat posted by a user called Joanna Barker. "Hi, your master is here." Users have speculated over whether this was the original UC Santa or an imitator. They did end up dropping a few UC pets to prove that it was them, but people doubt their legitimacy, and you'll soon understand why. Joanna Barker told the Pound chat that they would update their pet page with a new list at 6 PM, only 15 minutes away and 2 full hours before they said that the list would be posted. This, of course, sent the community into a panic. Users had spent weeks planning for this, and suddenly the new drop was being sprung on them in a matter of minutes. From Tumblr user Marolo's post on the debacle, quote, "The board is moving more quickly than I have ever seen a Neo board move. There was a new message practically every single time I refreshed, like once per second. People were going fucking wild." The anon posted how many page views the pet page had, and it got up to about 18k. For Neopets in 2019, which had long been considered dead/dying, 18,000 views was pretty insane. Everyone was waiting with bated breath for the UC drop, refreshing the page over and over. And then, on the 28th of December 2019, a day which has come to be known as Savage Saturday, UC Santa's page updated. Mwahahaha. Psych, you bunch of beggars. If you want your dream UC, just buy it with USD. And below was a list of cheat websites that sold UCs for real currency. Yep. It was all a troll. Naturally, the boards devolved into pure madness, with the boards moving at 100 miles a minute. The fallout was immense. Users were very, very angry and very, very upset, and you just can't imagine the chaos that ensued in those following hours. 6:02. 2 minutes after the update. Thanks, I'm in the bathroom having explosive you-know-what now. Thanks. According to Tumblr user You Are Sacred quote, also the filters just went down. The most active post on the PC right now contains the words suck dick and eat butt. By the 15-minute mark, the board had so many posts that it had reached capacity and another board had to be made. Posts were still flooding through at high speed, but a few users got to ask UC Santa / Joanna Barker some questions. They revealed that they supposedly worked for one of these black market Neopets sites, bankofneopia.com. Their reasoning for the bait and switch was flimsy at best. Guys, this is marketing. Give some free, and those who got nothing have an excuse to go buy some and pass them off as legit. Needless to say, it didn't really work. This was about as much useful information as users got before Joanna Barker's post began devolving. They would soon disappear forever, leaving as abruptly as they had come, but not before gracing the boards with one final post. Big brain, small pee-pee. Or none at all. Stonks. Never change, Joanna Barker. Never change. So let's talk theories. Naturally, after all this had gone down and Joanna Barker left, the boards and the subreddit filled up with questions, bewilderment, and speculation. Some proposed that the original UC Santa was a different person than Joanna Barker. Original UC Santa had been generous with their gifting, while Joanna Barker was clearly just a grifter. Plus, UC Santa had been banned multiple times and had been bouncing from shell account to shell account, so they didn't really go by just one username. The theory was that the original UC Santa leaked the 700 names out of generosity, or to see the pound chat go crazy I guess, and then disappeared. Joanna Barker, who worked at the cheat site bankofneopia.com, saw how crazy the community got and saw an advertising opportunity. They swooped in pretending to be UC Santa and used all of the hype to advertise their website just like they explained. The validity of this theory really hinges on when UC Santa's prophetic post was made. One write-up I read said that the post was made weeks after the original drop using the Joanna Barker username, while this screenshot seems to show that it was made on the day a few hours after the original drop. If it was made on the same day by the original UC Santa poster, they are likely just one person, and the fact that in their December post they were able to drop multiple UCs lends credibility to this. If it was made weeks later under a different username, it's far more likely that they were just an imitator. Some believe that after the original drop, owners of these cheat sites had somehow reached out to Joanna Barker and paid them to kind of build up hype and advertise their websites. Others believe that UC Santa became jaded after seeing how greedy and selfish Neopets users could be after the original drop. Throughout the ordeal, UC Santa had to repeatedly ask users to stop begging and fighting to no avail, and the reason that they were originally banned was because they went off on users who took too many UCs from the list. The greediness that they witnessed really seemed to set them off, so maybe it opened their eyes to the harsh reality of the world and made them go Joker mode. Neopets users still have no idea who UC Santa or Joanna Barker was or what their motives were, but Savage Saturday would go down in Neopets history as the day that one troll baited the entire community and left it in utter chaos. So UCs were clearly in high demand. I mean, I just told you a story about how these unconverted pets caused the entire community to have a meltdown. Well, because of how badly everyone wanted a UC, players were constantly begging the Neopets team to allow players to unconvert their pets. After all, it had been pretty unfair. If the team had converted every single pet, yes, some people would be annoyed, but it would be fair to everyone. Instead, they had this weird system where only randomly chosen specific colors were preserved for unknown reasons, and everyone else had their pets converted with no notice. Many players liked the old designs better, I don't blame them, and they were angry that they weren't given the option to unconvert their pets or make new UCs. Time and time again, staff told the player base that this was impossible within the game's code. They weren't making any new UCs because it simply couldn't be done. But they were lying. Back in around November of 2020, one of the Neopets staff members was found to have an unconverted Darrigan Bruce called Jungle Boo. The problem? Jungle Boo was 2,630 days old, meaning that it was born in 2013, around 6 years after the conversion. The Neopets team said that they could not and would not make any new UCs, and yet here Jungle Boo was, a UC born years after the conversion. The community flipped their shit on the boards when they noticed this. Most players had become vitriolic towards the Neopets team over the years for a variety of reasons, and to them this was another example of their lies and poor conduct. And while the boards were going crazy, Jungle Boo was doing a Benjamin Button on their ass because suddenly his age went from 2,630 days old to 7,625 days old. This meant that Jungle Boo was now born on the literal day Neopets launched. It was clear that the Neopets team was scrambling to save face. Jungle Boo's very existence proved that they had been lying about making new UC pets, and they knew that left unchecked he could spark the very end of Neopets as we know it. Okay, maybe not that far, but it made them look bad. Once again, the boards were going crazy, and once again Jungle Boo's age changed, this time to minus 15,653 hours, meaning that he was now unborn and would be born in the year 2038. Tumblr user DamnSkippyGF explained this phenomenon, quote, "Turns out that this is the maximum time the Neopets computer clock can count to, sometime around January 19th, 2038. So like something about this Neopet got corrupted so that this Neopet will only be born at the last second before the Neopets time counter collapses." Jungle Boo was also converted, which is basically a sin within the community considering how rare UCs are and how much they're worth. Converting one is basically increasing the rarity even more, so it pisses people off. It's fair to say that poor Jungle Boo had been corrupted and broken beyond repair, all in the name of saving face and avoiding backlash for lying about new UCs. But this was just the tip of the iceberg, as Neopets was about to face a chain of events that would break the economy entirely. So when you think about it, the whole black market is basically entirely the fault of the Neopets team. Most sites might have a few hacked accounts here and there, but Neopets had not one but two huge data breaches that compromised thousands of accounts. Because of the site's poor security, people were able to go online and find lists of thousands of usernames and passwords, turning Neopets into a haven for account theft like it was rampant. By 2020, most of the UCs in circulation were obtained through account hacking and then either kept on the hacker's account or sold on the black market. Basically, what I'm trying to say is there were a lot of illegitimate UCs circulating throughout the economy, and the Neopets team, despite causing it themselves, did not like this one bit. In 2020, they began cracking down on illegal UCs, and users' accounts would be frozen or iced if they were found to have hacked pets. Seems fair enough, you break the terms of service, you lose your account, that's generally how websites work. But the thing was, most players who owned illegal UCs didn't know they were illegal. Like I said, illegal UCs had been circulating throughout the economy, being traded from hacker to player to 10 more players after that. Due to their rarity, UCs were very hard to trade for. You'd have to trade pets for months on end in what is called a trading chain in order to obtain one. A trading chain, in simple terms, is where you take a pet, trade it for a slightly higher value pet, and repeat for months on end until you get a pet that's valuable enough to trade for a UC. It's a very slow and frustrating process, and users may have to trade tens of times to finally get a UC. If the Neopets team found out that a pet was illegal, or a user found out that their old account had UCs hacked off it and sent in a ticket, the Neopets team would return their pet to them. To do this, they would reverse the entire trading chain, meaning that throughout the community, hundreds of traded pets were being taken off people's accounts and returned to their old owners. And this was best case scenario. There are plenty of posts out there by people who had their accounts iced for unknowingly being a part of illegal trading chains, losing their entire account with no way to appeal it. Years of work and years of memories and nostalgia all gone. Obviously, this sent the community into a panic, with Neopians across the boards worrying about their accounts getting iced or their pets getting taken off them. Most of these folks thought that they had legitimately traded for their pets and were rightfully upset when they realized that A, they were illegal, and B, months of painstaking trading had gone to waste when their UC was taken off them. To quell the rising anger within the community, the Neopets team made an unprecedented decision. They decided to selectively start making new UC pets. Neopets users had long been suspicious that the team had the ability to make hack UCs but chose not to. The Jungle Boo situation had hinted at this, but now the Neopets team had completely confirmed it. Players who had been left in the lurch without a UC after the trade chains had been reversed were contacted by the Neopets team and given the option to pick any Neopet they wanted out of the pound and have it unconverted. It was the first time that Neopets had ever openly unconverted pets, and the first time that the UC population had ever increased instead of decreased. Some were angry. After all, it revealed that Neopets had really been lying about being able to unconvert pets the entire time, and some felt that it was very unfair. While others, especially those receiving the UCs, were just relieved that they'd be getting their pets back. After all, they didn't ask to be involved in the black market, they just kind of accidentally stumbled into it. So happy ending, the original owners get their pets back after being hacked, the people who traded for their pets also get their UCs, the population of UCs is increased, the Neoverse is healing, everything is tied up in a neat little bow. Sure, a few gabagools got iced along the way, but all in all it seems like Neopets was finally fixing the mess they had made and putting an end to the black market once and for all. But buckle up bucko, because the Neopets economy and the staff's reputation were about to take the worst hit in Neopets history when it was revealed that hackers had obtained a tool that could unconvert any pet on the website. It was the biggest black market scandal in Neopets history, even bigger than Savage Saturday, even bigger than Jungle Boo, even bigger than the 2020 Crackdowns, and was an event that would break the site entirely. March 2021, yes, this happened this year. Neopets drama is still very much alive and well. It's around 8 PM on the Pound chat when someone makes a post claiming they can unconvert pets and make new UCs, something which, as we know, is supposedly impossible. They claim that they have access to a link which allows players to access the site's administrator tools, including the ability to unconvert pets. And keep in mind that at this point, the only way to obtain UCs was to trade or hack into someone's old unused account. The user claimed to be able to hack brand new UCs just like Jungle Boo, but on a mass scale. These kinds of bait posts aren't uncommon in Pound chat. Plenty of people make wild claims about hacks and exploits and cheats but don't have any real proof for it. But this was different. They could prove it. The user had a 3-day-old Tyranian Quiggle UC on their account, and not only that, but they posted a list of over 3,000 UCs which had been illegally hacked using this method. I just told you about how players were getting iced for unknowingly being a part of these chains, so people were naturally freaking out. Turns out that these hackers had been using this link for quite a while before it was made public. Users frantically asked if any of their pets were on the list, fearful that they would lose their UCs or worse, their entire account. The original poster was quickly iced and their Quiggle was converted, but the damage was done, and once again the site broke out into chaos. Meanwhile, over on r/Neopets, the OP made a post explaining their reasoning. They claimed that they didn't want to cause trouble but had leaked the link as a way to force Jumpstart, the company running Neopets at the time, to fix the exploit by making it public. The OP spoke to Polygon in an article on the situation, quote, "I just wanted to prove to everyone that 1. This was a real backdoor in the website, 2. This website is not secure, 3. The Neopets team has no clue how to fix anything." The Neopets team, on the other hand, completely denied that the OP had legitimate access to administrator tools and instead accused them of using third-party hacking software. It makes sense that Neopets would deny this. If it was true that their code was so shoddy that multiple users were able to access the game's admin tools, it could spell disaster for their already poor reputation. Those multiple data breaches from years back add a lot of credibility to the theory that, yeah, Neopets was just run on such ramshackle spaghetti code that the users were able to hack into the game and give themselves admin permissions. On the other hand, OP could have just been a hacker who was using a bot or other software to unconvert pets. Either way, with Jungle Boo, the team unconverting pets, and now players hacking and unconverting pets themselves, the UC economy was falling apart in real time. Everything was coming to a head, the Neoverse was in shambles, and it felt like everything was falling apart. I mean, at least for the Pound chat players, all the other players are probably just chilling and playing Hot Dog Hero. And then a post went up. Hey Neopians, as we're sure some of you are aware, a site issue has surfaced involving unconverted pets. Our team is aware of the situation and are actively finding solutions for it. As a reminder, there are no official channels for the creation of new unconverted pets. Any pets directly tied to this recent issue that have been illegally unconverted will be returned to their original states once the issue has been resolved. Additionally, any user found to be tampering with pet conversion in their own or other users' accounts will be banned and frozen. We've implemented a fix for the issue and will be continuing to patch and monitor the situation over the next few days. We appreciate your patience as we get everything sorted out. We're also aware of the high demand for unconverted pets and have been looking into solutions to properly implementing them back into the game while keeping things fair for the existing community. We'll circle back with more news later this year. TNT. That's right, the Neopets team were finally acknowledging the demand for UCs, and for the first time in 20 years they said they were considering bringing them back. They had pretended for years that this was impossible, no new UCs ever. But after they came to realize how extensive and far-reaching the black market was and how close hackers were to completely wrecking the economy by flooding it with hacked UCs, they had to give in. Some laughed, some cried. Some rage quit. Most UC owners rushed to the pound chat to try and trade their UCs for pets with valuable names instead, fearing that UCs would plummet in value. Because, as Tumblr user Switch wrote, pound chat never changes. That about sums up the entire unconverted Petz saga. Who knew that just a simple art style change would cause years of economical strife within the community? It's bizarre how far players are willing to go just to get a Neopet with slightly different art than the others, and it's clear that a lot of these veteran UC collectors were entrenched in the world and the economy of Neopets to the point where it was very real to them. One player wrote in a Polygon article, quote, "We've put years of our lives and a lot of serious negotiation and effort into working our way up this weird ladder that doesn't really exist." The Neopets team later admitted that choosing to keep some pets unconverted was a contentious decision within the company that they predicted would cause problems, and they were right. Many users have echoed the sentiment that they should have just bit the bullet and converted all pets. Sure, some people would have been annoyed, but it would have saved them from years of black market scandals that lowered the reputation of the site and gradually turned the Neopets community against its creators. The general vibe these days is one of antagonism towards the Neopets team. Users have had to put up with years of lies, cover-ups, unfair suspensions, lack of communication, poor website design, unsafe security, and bad business decisions. Who knows whether the Neopets team will be able to mend this relationship and fix the UC economy, or whether it's a lost cause. Okay, I promise we're done with unconverted pets. That was a lot of drama. The Neopets economy is a wild place. So let's jump back in time a bit, back to 2014. As we discussed at the start of this video, ownership of Neopets Inc. went from Doug During in 2000 to Viacom in 2005 and was eventually sold to Jumpstart Games in 2014. After the changeover, the site almost immediately broke down, characterized by horrendous site lag, bugs, and glitches. Many players felt that Jumpstart was letting the site fall into disrepair, and the general feeling was that they didn't seem to really get Neopets. This lack of site upkeep came to a head in June 2015 on Sunday the 28th. Sunday, the Lord's Day, a day of reverent prayer and holy worship, a day which has come to be known as the Day of Sin, the Neopocalypse. If you need any indication of the insanity that we're about to discuss, Kotaku wrote an article on the topic titled "Neopets Community Melts Down. Eat my hoe butt." So, you know, we're in for a ride. So Neopets is a game for kids. Obviously adults play it, but it's always been marketed as a family-friendly game that's safe for kids. Because of this, Neopets has very restrictive filters in place on the forum boards. No hell, no damn, no shit, no ass, and no Avril Lavigne. Okay. Basically, there's no swearing on Neopets, and the team has even been under fire for blocking out words related to the LGBTQ community such as gay, bi, lesbian, etc. Their reasoning was because gender identity and sexuality was on a list of hot topics alongside politics and religion that they didn't want to allow on the site, so yikes. They recently changed this so now your quiggles can be as gay as they want, but back to my original point. Neopets chat was always heavily restricted by the built-in filter system as well as the moderators. Users did occasionally swear, but they would usually be reprimanded or even iced for doing so. However, everything changed on the weekend of the 27th to the 28th. The filters went down. The mods didn't seem to be active, or maybe there just weren't enough working that weekend. No filters, no mods. I'm about to get so fucking trashed.
Satan.
Neogold to have sex with each and every one of you. These sexism, drug board.
Big
Y'all
dick is
need
back in
Jesus.
town.
How do I make crystal meth? That night, Neopets went offline. Users were left to ponder the events of that day. Many would be iced in the following days. But it had all been worth it, and Neopians from all corners of the internet came together to share their favourite moments of chaos. Discourse was started about how it was inappropriate to post such crass things on a website for children, and during the Neopocalypse, many parents echoed this sentiment. Eventually, the Neopets team fixed the filters, took down all the offending posts, and changed those poor Neopets names back. Rest in peace, tampon slut. Rumors flew around that the Neopocalypse was caused by Jumpstart firing all their employees before the weekend, but this wasn't true. They issued a statement when the site went back up explaining what had happened. At some point over the weekend, as a result of a facility move, the Neopets moderation and filter system went offline. During this period, our moderation team was not able to access and appropriately manage the Neopets community and inappropriate comments that were being made. Jumpstart has since taken down the boards and other areas affected as we work to get the moderation teams and filters functioning properly. This was an unfortunate incident due to the facility move related to our servers and not the result of any changes to our moderation teams, and we apologize to the users that were affected. We will keep all users updated during the day. This was not a staffing issue but a technology issue related to the move in facilities and our servers that control our moderation. Rest assured that we are taking this seriously and putting fail-safe solutions in for the future. Quick update, we have, since writing this, reconnected all servers associated with moderation/filtering on Neopets. So it seems that a facility move shuffled some networks around and disconnected Neopets' filtering system. Some saw this as indicative of Jumpstart's lack of care or interest in maintaining the site, while others saw it as just a simple mistake. Neopets gradually got better with time, with the lag and glitches being fixed, and Jumpstart adding new events and storylines for players to enjoy. Still, the Neopocalypse has gone down in history as the day that the kid-friendly and sanitized denizens of Neopets showed their true colors. Neopets has had a long and tumultuous history, from shady advertising to black markets to bad business practices. It's fair to say that the relationship between the Neopets team and the players has always been pretty rocky. But regardless of this, Neopets players keep coming back. A lot of them are completely immersed in this world, having invested hundreds of hours to work their way up the Neopian ladder. I can't blame them. The site was like a second home for a lot of kids on the early internet, and many of these die-hard players are so attached to the site because of this nostalgia. I don't want anyone coming away from this video thinking that Neopets sucks or is bad or anything. Despite all the scandals, the Neopets community has remained as funny, creative, and smart as ever. Despite the death of Flash and the site's slow decline in popularity, the die-hard fans are still there, ready to follow Neopets wherever it goes. I'm pretty sure the site is turning into an app now, and while it'll be nice for everything to be updated and modernized, many feel that Neopets will inevitably lose its charm. No matter how many times the site changed hands over the years and how much money it was generating, it was clear that the site was a labor of love by many programmers, artists, designers, and fans. It's a shame that all of this might be ironed out in the new version, but hey, it's been 20 years, it's had a pretty damn good run. And hopefully, if they know what's good for them, they'll find a way to avoid the decades of drama that plagued the website. Or maybe it'll be Neopocalypse 2.0, either way it's fine with me. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, I really appreciate it. I really hope that you enjoyed that topic. If you ever have any suggestions for things you want me to cover in the future, definitely let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much to Honey for sponsoring it, thank you to you guys for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! A massive thank you to my Garfield overlords on Patreon. Charlie B, Simon, Sir Jalen III, John Leach, Missy Robin, Pom, Agarafin, Xavier Araujo, Vampiric Misfit, Icarus, Ryan W, John Charles Davey, Finley, American Guilt, Helm Hamburger Hand, Lady Cerebellum, Durzo Blint, Sheriff Whiskey, The Furby Librarian, Princess Bossy Boots, Red Meth, Astrian Vortex, Jesse Chisholm, Kerbicon, Sophie Skidder, X17chan, Kendall Pachalik, Grip Gunderson, Tyson, Aiden McFan, Gyro Bredito, Joe Bradshaw, Aaron, and Arcantilus. Thank you guys so much for the support, it means the world to me, and if you want to join these guys on Patreon, the link will be in the description. Once again, thank you for the support, love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!